It's time for Talkin Tauntauns, your Star Wars source at AIPTcomics.com.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Talkin Tauntauns. I am Jim Lahane, with you as always, because I have nowhere else to be. And with me, as always, is Nicole Herview.
Hello.
JJ is off doing JJ things this week, so it is us this week. But with us is a friend of Nicole's, so I'll let her introduce our guest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is Alex Bond.
I'm Alex Bond. Hi.
That's Alex Bond. And we used to have a podcast called Nerd Jersey. And we did that for 2.5 years, and we talked about nerd crap and hockey. And hardly any hockey. But that was the intention.
Like
that was the intention, but it didn't really work out that way.
No.
He's also a musician. How many bands are you in right now?
1.5.
1.5. Yeah,
I just
that's
recently started supporting the singer of one of my old bands in
Right.
his like solo project. So that's the half.
That's the half, right?
Because I'm there to play guitar. I don't got to write.
Right.
It's all on him.
Yes, but yeah, we've done this before.
It's only 2.5 years.
It was like 2.5, maybe.
Which
3
sounds
years.
also long, but not at
all. Yeah.
It was like 120 episodes.
Yeah. It was 120 episodes, you're right. And then we went to Comic-Con a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Did that fun thing. But yeah, here to talk about Star Wars. Obviously.
Excellent. We like Star Wars.
I think it's okay.
It's okay. So this week, we are returning to our periodic review of the Star Wars live-action movies, the Skywalker saga. This is Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Also the 9th movie chronologically.
Mm.
And the 7th movie released theatrically.
Yeah.
If we don't count the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
If you don't count the Clone Wars movie, yep. And so that would be the 8th movie if you count the Clone Wars movie, which we did actually cover as part of this retrospective as well.
Did you? This is before me, so.
That was before you, yeah. JJ wasn't happy about that because I make him watch a lot of movies.
Because that movie is atrocious.
Just wait till we get to the Ewoks movie. I'm skipping it. JJ has absolutely refused to watch it. But Connor, I believe it will be fully on board. And Nicole, I feel like I can make you watch it.
You made me watch the holiday special, so
I've never watched the holiday special.
Buddy, just listen to the episode we did because that's enough. That's enough. I was texting these guys like, I think I'm gonna pass away. I'm not gonna make it, and I'm 8 minutes in. Listen to that episode.
Are there multiple Ewok movies?
Are there multiple Ewok movies?
I seem to remember like a Walmart bargain bin movie with like not more than one.
Yeah.
The Caravan of Courage and why can't I remember the other one?
Wicket's Family Reunion.
No, I have it sitting. It's like sitting right over there somewhere.
I believe in you, Jim.
I can't remember the other one. I'm saying
that's okay. I think we can forgive you because I, for one, have never once cared about an Ewoks movie. But you know what? For the joy and comedy of it, I'll watch them.
They're fun.
Sure.
Sometimes.
I believe you. You brought me the Christmas in the Stars album. So, you know what? I'll trust you this much.
I have a large pantheon of stuff that sits in that, oh my God, they made this, that I can introduce to other people, also known as torture other people with.
Yes, 100%, yes.
But today is The Force Awakens.
What was your job when you were based here? Sanitation. Sanitation? Then how do you know how to disable the shields? I don't. I'm just here to get Rey. People are counting on us. The galaxy is counting on us. Solo, we'll figure it out. We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works. Oh, really? You're cold?
Released December 18th, 2015, shortly after the Disney buyout where George Lucas decided that he was done pretty much doing anything because now he had a buttload of money and he didn't need to do anything. So he essentially gave Star Wars to Disney in exchange for quite a bit of money. But from what I'm told, he donated most of the money anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
He does that. My friend went to USC and would frequently see George Lucas walking around campus, to the point where they had a game amongst themselves that I just see a homeless guy or George Lucas on the quad. And about half the time it was George Lucas.
I need to talk to Ryman about that because I need to hear all of it.
Well, he donated a bunch to the school. He had his own wing.
Oh yeah, he does have his own
wing.
Were
involved in movies. So him and the marching band were in the Croods soundtrack.
Yeah,
Nicolas Cage?
Yeah, I do remember that. My God, he's full of information. This one.
I'm full of useless information that no one needs nor wants.
We need and we want.
That's we need and we want. I got tons of information that nobody wants or cares about, but you'll get it through your ear holes. Yeah. So even before the sale of Disney, this movie was already in the works. George Lucas had Michael Arndt, who is listed as the screenwriter for one of the co-screenwriters for the movie. He had him working on a screenplay for this movie before the sale, and then after the sale, the Disney execs kind of decided that they wanted to go into it in a different direction than what Michael Arndt was coming up with, and so J.J. Abrams decided to write his own script with Lawrence Kasdan, and that is the movie that we are going to be discussing. Not the one with Michael Arndt, because I don't know if we'll ever see that movie.
I don't think so. I don't think that's happening.
We won't see a script. We won't see notes.
Nothing. It won't happen. They're going to bury that. It'll make too many people too happy.
From what George Lucas has said about his sequel trilogy, it would have been weird.
Oh, yeah, very strange.
I'm all for place in the microscopic universe of the wills of the Force.
Very good, George Lucas.
I don't I've seen that quote, but I don't know how much he's just trolling.
It feels like a lot.
Yeah. I feel like that's his job now. He's like, I'm just gonna.
But also, from those little, it could have been the nugget of the idea that would have birthed this thing that actually made sense.
Right.
So on paper, it's like, oh, it would have taken place within the midichlorians. That sounds stupid, but then you would have been like, oh no, that's the first 5 minutes, and then we expand out, and it could have been.
Sure.
It could have been great. He would have probably had Dave Filoni on board saying this is what we're gonna do here, and that's not what we got.
That's not what we got.
Yeah. But the funny thing is he got so much flack for the prequel trilogy that is mostly probably the reason why he didn't do the sequel trilogy, because he just didn't want to deal with it. And then after the sequel trilogy is everybody's we want George Lucas back. It's I'm pretty sure he remembers why he's not there.
Yeah, he knows. He knows.
So the movie grossed
his thing was always
$2 billion.
Yeah,
the movie grossed $2 billion, one of the top grossing movies of all time. Easily earned Disney back most of the money they spent on Star Wars right there with that one film. And kind of kicked off the entire Disney era of Star Wars as we know it today. Galaxy's Edge is based firmly with this movie. At least one of the two movies that come after this follows it.
Yeah, I hear you.
I had to think. That was a thinker. No, you're right.
I think we both needed a hot second, but well done.
So, start with, where were you guys when the movie came out? Kind of give us our background.
Did we see it together?
No,
we didn't.
Yeah,
yes.
So,
we did.
No, we did.
Did we?
Yes, we did.
Okay,
yes,
well, thank goodness.
100%.
Yes,
we did.
Yeah, I saw it twice. So
I saw it 3 times.
Yeah,
I think all in IMAX.
Yes. Yeah.
So
we were down the street.
I think we went. Were we opening?
Yeah.
night.
Definitely opening night.
Is this one of those times we went to the movie at like 10 p.m. and then went back and recorded the podcast like
yes.
immediately? Probably.
Yes, because we did cover this in our podcast.
Yes.
It's all coming back to me now. We had just graduated college. Like
2015
would 4 months before that, 6 months before that, somewhere in there. And we had just started the podcast, so this was one of, like he said, we went to the movie at like 10 o'clock at night on a Thursday probably, and then recorded until like midnight to cover it. So we were in that prime weird space between when you graduate and like you don't really have a job, and
I had a job.
You had a job.
It didn't pay well.
Yep, I had a retail job, so I did have a job, but not like the ones we have now. And so we were in a weird mid-section of our lives, and so that's where we were, and this gave me joy in a way that nothing had for a very long time.
Greatly.
Yeah.
So back in 2015, I was actually really upset with Disney that they were doing the new movies. Because as someone who has read all of the books, I did not like that they rebooted canon for the new movies. But I was also kind of excited because I didn't know where, like, literally they had no holds bar. They could do anything they want. And so I'm like, okay, let's see what they can give me. And they had out here in Utah, or not here anymore, when I lived in Utah, they had a movie marathon, all 7 movies in a row, start to finish, like 5-minute break between each movie. And so
in what order?
1 through 7.
So it
So the
started
proper order.
Phantom.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so
We didn't do
I went.
machete order.
That
is
would have
what
been
we're-
that
we're
would
getting
have
at.
been that would have been
That'd been
wild
ridiculous.
if they did that.
Go on, Jim.
So I went to the movie marathon. Anybody who listens Full of Sith, the hosts Brian and Mike were actually at the same screening as me. They went to that same movie marathon.
Yeah, cool.
And so I watched all 6. Nobody else wanted to do it with me, so I was by myself. My wife was going to join me for the Force Awakens after the movie marathon, so I watched it twice in a row. And so I watched all 6, did the Force Awakens, and then I had bought an IMAX ticket for the Force Awakens again to watch with my wife.
You're amazing.
However, the movie theater that the marathon was in did not have an IMAX theater, but I did not realize it at the time that I was watching the movies, that I was actually at a different movie. I had to go to a different movie theater about 15 minutes away between the 2 movies, of which I had about 15 minutes to get there.
Great.
Oh my God, Jim.
Great.
Didn't even realize it all opening night. And so I met my wife at the new theater, watched it in IMAX. And after the first screening, I was super excited. Like, this movie is one of those like loud in your face, like kind of get you amped up. After the second screening, my wife walked out and went, "Did they really have to remake A New Hope?" At which point I looked at her and went, "Oh crap, you're right." Like, I never thought of it.
A little bit. So,
yeah.
So I watched it this time with that in mind, because that was my instinct as well. Like, okay, it's A New Hope all over again. Here's why it's A New Hope all over again. Because it's not, but it is, but it's not. There's a lot of deviations in this movie that doesn't follow the same, like, what's the equivalent of the trash compactor scene? I don't know. Like, it's not quite
the
a copy and paste.
dumping of Phasma.
Right, but it's not the same thing. It's
No.
like like kind of a copy and paste, but not really.
It's one of those, like, if you talk about it in generic terms, you can easily have both movies in the same. Like, you have a droid with some information that droid needs to get back to the rebel resistance base, and so you're kind of following that droid along, and like things like that. Like, you can generically talk about the information.
Sure, but it's also just because they follow the hero's journey so closely. Like, it's because both of these movies follow the same outline of the hero's journey, which 90% of movies follow anyway. So it's an interesting criticism, and you're right, especially with the opening. The opening is exactly the same. I will give you that. Absolutely. It's the same thing. It's Poe Dameron as Princess Leia. Got it. Like, it's the same thing.
Desert planet.
Yes, desert
Star
planet.
Destroyer.
Yes.
Slightly different camera angle.
Yep. We've got
the reveal of the man in black with the black mask.
Yep. You've got like a reluctant hero scavenger person on a desert who is suddenly with Luke suddenly without a family, with Rey without a family. It's, yes, they rhyme. I'll use the George Lucas.
Don't do it.
I
will smack you if you say it. If you say
I said it already.
the words.
They rhyme. That's all. The movies rhyme. He's so done with me.
It's kind of more and more since that time. It's gotten to be that J.J. Abrams' bread and butter is like giving you the thing you're familiar with, repackaging it and making it feel new.
Yeah,
he's done that to good effect in like he relaunched the Mission Impossible franchise when that had like a terrible second movie, and then he was 5 years later like, I'm gonna do another Mission Impossible movie, and now we've had like 8 more. Super 8 was a very good send-up of Spielberg 80s movie. Spielberg, the one that basically said, oh, you know who should make your new Star Wars movie? J.J. Abrams. And they were like, done, sold. And then he relaunched Star Trek for us by giving us something that's a little modern.
Yeah, J.J. didn't want to do Star Wars. That's like...
No. Yeah. How weird is that? But he made such a good Star Wars movie when he relaunched Star Trek, because even that follows the same kind of deal
thing.
Of like the group, this band of misfits all happening to come together. A planet gets destroyed. Even like here, where we have like older versions of classic characters. Well, he threw in classic Leonard Nimoy Spock in a movie where they had already recast Spock. It's kind of his, but he did such a good job relaunching those things. Like, he's kind of the master of kicking something off, and I get why they would give this to him, because you look at like I like all of Lost personally. I know it's not popular, but like the first season where he's like very involved,
that's gold.
He was one of the minds behind Fringe, and once that took off, it went Cloverfield.
That's all I can say about J.J. Abrams is Cloverfield.
The more it goes on, the more you see his mystery box. You're like, this is kind of you're playing with kind of the same tricks over and over and over.
Yes, he's got a particular set of skills, and he's very good at those things. And then he's not good at too much else. He's a master of a few.
Like, kick it off, but don't hand it to him to end something, for God's sake.
Lord above. Just have him start a thing, and then just give it to someone else. Give it to Bryce Dallas Howard. That would have worked out.
Well, that was the plan for the sequel trilogy in general. That they had all agreed. Well, they all agreed like that they would play relay. They would pass the baton on to the next person. JJ would pass it on to Ryan. Ryan would pass it on to Trevorrow. And I don't know if Trevor was signed on this early in the plans, but that was the initial plan, is to basically have one go to the next.
It wasn't long after this they announced him, I don't think, because after Jurassic World, he was like one of the biggest names getting thrown around for everything. That was also 2015, right?
Right, I think you're right.
So I feel like they would have tapped him pretty quickly after this if it wasn't already.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that you had this story treatment where JJ was the producer for all 3. I think that was always the plan, is he was always going to be the producer for all 3. But story-wise, I feel like he didn't really care what he left off with. He wanted to get his story done, and then whoever took it after this could take it after this. Like, I don't really care what happens from here, because I'm not going to be in charge of it anymore. And when we get to the Rise of Skywalker, obviously plans changed in the process.
Plans either changed or didn't exist. Or both.
Yeah.
I mean, loose plans, but like they just...
An outline.
Wouldn't that have been nice?
It would have been great.
Well, that was the arc of our 4 or 5 main characters is going to go this way. Whatever happens in between to get them there is up
Figure
to
it out.
JJ, is up to Ryan, is up to Colin, or whoever was going to end up with 9 after they fired Colin. Bryce would have been good. John Favreau would have been good.
Just give it to
things
Dave.
that we all know now in hindsight that we can't reasonably say like, oh, they should have just my idea would be like, you picked the wrong Star Wars legacy figure to help write your relaunch in Lawrence Kasdan. Like, yeah, he's Lucasfilm royalty, I get it, but even if like Dave Filoni's in the room there, because he's somewhere in the art department for this movie, he's in the credits, and then nowhere else for the rest of the trilogy. I think he was on set with Ryan. But like, if you have him to help kind of guide the ideas of like, yeah, you threw out George's ideas, but I understand the characters, and here's the journey that we're going to take, and then let everyone's vision come through and make them kind of distinct movies, because that was also a flaw of the trilogies, the prequels, is that it's just George and George alone. He's the only writer, he's the only director, because everyone's like, no, man, it's your vibe.
Right.
And
so they had a chance to differentiate that.
Yeah, he had yes men around him for the prequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Despite, I don't think he wanted yes men around him, but nobody wanted to tell him no.
He asked Spielberg. I'm pretty sure Ron Howard was in that conversation as well about, like, do you want to do one of these? And he was like, no, absolutely not. That's your thing.
Goodbye. Yeah.
Like, how am I going to touch your legacy? These are the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah.
And so, well, we ended up getting Ron Howard back.
Eventually.
Thank goodness.
Eventually. So, but like going back to the movie itself, the opening of this movie is perhaps my favorite opening of any of the movies.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good.
I love the silhouette of the Star Destroyer, the flashing of the lights with the stormtroopers there. Like, it really is, like, it draws you in immediately. It's
so pretty.
Yeah.
The whole
is
movie is
it
like
is
that.
beautiful.
There's so many striking shots.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, like for a while, this movie had been on my down, one of my lower movies, but just watching it this time, I'm like, you know what? Like, I do enjoy this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I like where they're going with this. This movie, it's weird because you're basing the entire movie around a character not there.
Mm-hmm.
Luke is mentioned 4 times in the opening crawl. Like, I had to rewind it and count. I'm like, how many times do they mention Luke? Like, literally 4 times he is mentioned.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought up the opening crawl, because watching it again, I remember being in the theater and seeing it, because we knew, or at least I was either avoiding information about the movie, or we knew very little about what it was actually going to be. And when I saw, like, General Leia Organa for the first time, I remember just, like, the feeling in my gut of just, like, that's incredible. And, like, just there was so much in that opening crawl that was, you couldn't have written a better opening crawl. I don't think I could have.
I couldn't read it. I was crying too much.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I was very emotional in the theater when that first, like, the music first swelled up. Like, one of my earliest memories of going to the movies was when they relaunched the original trilogy in '97. So, like, the idea of being back in the theater to watch, like, a fresh Star Wars movie and the new crawl and, like, what's it gonna say was, like, on my mind forever. And then I was just so overwhelmed by the music that I was like, I can't even read what's going on. I don't know what's happening.
It was awesome. It was a good moment.
But I did notice, like, seeing where things go from here in this idea of, like, what the whole conflict of the movie is, that they say the First Order basically rose up after Luke disappeared. So he goes away. Out of the ashes of the Empire come the First Order. Now we're in this point where it's like they are basically the Empire again. They're this huge monolith of power that came from the ashes of the Empire, but you are, like, seemingly the supremacy of the galaxy in my mind. And how the movie presents them is like they are absolutely in control. They are to be feared. They got this big ass Star Destroyer with this crazy cross nose.
I saw that. Yeah. Well, this movie is what cements them, because they are essentially, as we talked about rebellions on our July 4th episode, they are the rebellion in this episode. They do not agree with the government, and as opposed to a normal rebellion, they blow up the government. I guess maybe not a normal. I guess there's issues in our human history.
Republic fighters are called the Resistance.
Yeah. It's because I guess they're resisting the First Order.
They're resisting the Resistance.
They're resisting the First Order. The Republic did not want to fight the First Order. Yeah, and that's the problem. Here. So the Resistance is Leia's cell that is non-sanctioned, sanctioned sort of thing. It's like it's not official, but
it's
she's
like I don't see anything.
Yeah, she's the
we're
only
gonna let
one.
you operate. Okay, yeah.
So that's why the First Order is allowed to operate, because the Republic basically doesn't. They have a truce essentially with the First Order.
So much for that.
And then Hitler / Hux decides that he needs to blow up the Republic, and so that's where you get the First Order going from the rebellion to the
by the way, that Finn definitely knows about.
The whole time.
Finn knows the plan,
Yeah.
says nothing. It happens, and he goes, "Oh my god, the First Order did it. They blew up the Republic." And
Well,
they're like,
they
"You can tell it
actually
from
did
down
it,
here."
yeah.
Like, yeah, he knew what was going on. He knew they were ready to fire.
He probably did, yeah. And he just didn't. I mean, when did he have a chance to really say anything without having people absolutely crap their britches?
Well, actually, he by the time he gets to the Republic, he does. They already know.
That's true, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or the
This is true.
Resistance.
The Resistance,
Because
yes.
he was trying the entire movie to get away until Rey is captured, and then from there he immediately goes. Maybe not immediately, but fairly quickly, he goes to. He's brought to Leia by Poe, and that's when they're like, "Yeah, we already know what's going on." It's like, okay, so we didn't need him to tell
I
them
kind of
anything?
forgot how close he got to like leaving the movie.
A few times,
he's
yeah.
boarding that ship with those two mercenaries to go to the Outer Rim. Like his feet are in it.
He's like, I gotta
And he
go.
turns around and he sees Kylo entering the ship with Rey, and he's like, "Oh, like if they had maybe grabbed another bag earlier, he would have been gone. That would have been it."
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking
That's
of leaving the movie, Poe,
Yeah.
almost
My
didn't make
boy.
it past
Yeah.
the first 5-10 minutes of the movie.
I thought he was gone. I was so upset.
Well, that was the plan. He was supposed
Yeah.
to die in the TIE fighter crash and not
Wait,
come
really?
back. Yeah.
Even when they had Oscar Isaac in the role?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Oscar Isaac was not really anybody huge at that time.
I mean,
No,
now there was like
this
the
is what
original
kinda-
trio, but like that's your trio.
Yeah, I think that's why they were like, no, we need him because you need 3. You always
that's-
need 3.
Mhm.
So that's why his leaving and then coming back is so weird.
It is.
Mm.
Is
it's
because he
very
was
weird.
supposed to die when the TIE fighter got sucked into the ground and exploded.
Yeah, yeah, and they kind of like half explain it away. Like he's like, "Oh yeah, like I woke up like far away from the wreckage
Yeah, like,
in the
I
middle
got-
of the night, and
I
you
got
weren't there."
thrown
and
from the ship, and you were
somehow
gone.
I got off Jakku. I don't know how I did that, but like,
Well,
there's
that's
just so many questions that I have about like how'd you get here again?
I thought
Well,
that
they
too,
did
'cause
explain
I forgot
that.
how he. Yeah, they did, and I had forgotten that. So
Hmm.
like when Finn wakes up, it's still daylight. He's getting out of the thing that the TIE fighter is sinking.
Yeah,
I'm like, so Poe's not in the ship, and that he didn't think to look around. Like he
Yeah.
just left
He's
Finn
like,
and his jacket and was like, "I'm out. I'm
"Goodbye."
done. I'm finding my
Yeah.
droid."
Well, you're in the middle of the desert without water, and like you weren't planning on this. So I assume
Right,
that
No.
yeah.
like you ejected from the TIE fighter in space. Poe can literally be anywhere within like thousands of kilometers, like depending on
This is
how
true.
high they left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. It's just it always felt really clunky him like coming back for no like I was like okay,
It is.
it's very clunky. Do I love it? Yeah, you bet I love it. But it's
It's
not,
Oscar
like,
Isaac.
But yeah, I just remember being like, who the hell is that? Like as soon as he was on screen, I was like, what's going on?
I mean, he's just got so much.
here?
Even what in the face of Kylo Ren when he shows up
Mm.
and he's just kneeling there, and you get that kind of like smarmy. Who talks first? You talk
You
first.
talk
I talk
first?
first.
That's
Okay, that's who this guy is. This is
Mhm.
like our Han Solo kind of smooth talker, great pilot. The idea that we're gonna kill that guy 20 minutes into the movie, wild to me.
Mhm,
I did not know
mhm.
that.
Yeah, it would have been a poor choice.
But like he sells you on the tone of the movie right there. You get first of all, Kylo's approach in the ship, his theme, John Williams' theme for Kylo Ren absolutely slaps.
Excellent.
It is so good and terrifying.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
it's like, oh my god, this is a dude right here.
This is a dude. We have to
And he
look out
freezes
for
the
him.
blaster bolt in midair,
Yeah.
which we've never seen
Oh.
happen
Never
before.
seen that before.
the whole like the first couple of force powers he uses, like ripping information from people's heads, like the freezing of the blaster
Horrifying.
bolt is like
Mhm.
we've never seen those in the movies before, and
Yeah.
like that freezing of the blaster bolt is so like visceral. Like you have Poe walking by it as it's
Mhm.
frozen in midair,
And it
It's-
stays there the whole time until he leaves.
and
Yeah.
then that's
it's
what
just
he
hanging there.
and he's not
So intense.
like visibly holding it.
No. So
It's
you
just
kind of
there.
set up that stake of like, this is a very powerful force wielder.
Yeah.
It makes up for the fact that he's terrible with a lightsaber later on.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
he's
they
very
do
good at wielding the Force.
Well, they explain that. If you pay attention, they didn't outright say it though, because how strong is Chewbacca's bowcaster? It literally blows a stormtrooper back like 12, 15 feet. Kylo gets shot by that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just kneels down and
And
takes a
beats
few
the
seconds.
Crap out of his side.
And then he's like visibly bleeding. He's hitting the side to kind of fuel himself, but he is like damaged by that lightsaber by the time of that lightsaber fight. And so he gets taken down by Finn, who we know has some variety of hand-to-hand combat based on his attacking I don't remember the trooper's name, but I loved that they called him Traitor.
TR-8R.
TR-8R. And so that one, like, he clearly can do something with a lightsaber, and so he gets some shots in on Kylo, and then obviously Rey has hand-to-hand combat training, which we again see at the beginning in the movie, and she also gets some shots in. Like, he's not the ideal duelist, but he's also dealing with a lower level starting point.
It's fair. And Snoke also says right at the end, and we're like jumping around a lot. I know. I'm sorry.
No, we're
But he
good.
says like, I will, bring him to me. It's time to finish his training.
Like, he's not done yet.
So however long it's been going on, it's not like he is Vader in the original trilogy at his absolute peak. And when you go to Rogue One, you see what that actually looks like. But like, he's on his way, and he's obviously very strong with the Force. I mean, look at who his mother and uncle are, and grandfather, for that matter.
And grandfather.
But yeah, it's a pretty. I enjoy when you see like new forms of the Force demonstrated. So seeing him freeze a blaster bolt, I remember the reaction in the theater was like, "What?
Like, what just happened?" We were all looking at each other like.
The pulling
Hello?
of information, the Force sensitivity around objects, so the spiritual peyote journey that Rey goes on when she touches Luke's lightsaber.
Yeah.
All very interesting additions to the lore of what the Force is and can do depending on who you are and how you are impacted by it.
They all make sense, too.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they all tie into what we've seen before. I can levitate something with my mind. All of a sudden, I can stop a blaster bolt. Have we ever thought you could do that? No. But does it work? Yeah, I can make it work in my head. Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
They're not far-reaching. They're
No.
You're pushing the boundaries of what we knew the Force to be, but not unrealistically. That is a very carefully calculated part of this movie that I think was really impressive, because you could go bananas with it, but they didn't. They were like, what's in the realm of possibility for this reality? And then they pushed it just a little bit, and it worked out beautifully.
so there's one scene that watching the movie this time that I just laughed at because it's bad. It's not even a whole scene. It's one shot when Han Solo enters the Millennium Falcon. He looks like he is the guest star on a one of those like on a sitcom. Yes, exactly. Like he walks in, he's like, Chewie, we're home. I'm like, oh my god, you filmed it. It
is kind of like a Kramer entrance.
It really is.
You really are kind of waiting for the audience in the background to go.
Then yes, and we did. And you know what? We all did.
We did. But they put that like in the first trailer. It was the first thing that got you hyped about it. Because I remember that first trailer, like watching it over and over, and it was just those snippets of shots. So it opens with Finn like rising up in front of the what we thought was the Dune Sea at the time. Like, we're going back to Tatooine. Okay, I get why. The little glimpse of BB-8 rolling along, like, oh, new droid. Like, those were things going on. You get the line of the X-wings in a row, and the end thing was the door opening, and Han and Chewie standing there going, Chewie, we're home, and then Force Awakens is like the title reveal.
Yeah,
you knew it was coming.
Yeah,
it still hit.
It hit.
It is a little silly in execution.
Now it's stupid.
But like at that time, you're like, yes,
it's the best thing that's ever happened. And then 7 years later, you're like, did we need to do that?
Yeah.
Did we need that? I don't think we needed that.
But even then, it still gives you goosebumps. because
yes.
it's Harrison Ford walking into this, and he is like, regardless if he wants to do a role or not, he puts like all the effort in to do that role the best he can.
He's so smarmy and funny. Like the whole movie where he's just like, that's not how the Force works. And it's just like, he has the quips like for days.
For how much he seems to kind of like brush off this enormous legacy that the character has.
Yeah.
And that he is very much a part of that. Him interacting with Chewbacca, I think it's probably the most fun. I feel like he was having the most fun. I think it's his best performance as Han of the 4 films he's in as Han. Because he kind of feels a little bit more realized, a little more embodied. Yeah, he's kind of back to where he started from at the beginning of this movie, which kind of bothers me, but also like the bond that they have, it's understood how he got there. And like the back and forth, oh, you're cold. Yeah, the way he talks about Chewie when Finn's bringing Chewbacca back in after he gets shot and he's like trying to pin him down and patch up his shoulder, Han's like, if you mess with him, you're gonna deal with me. And he's like, he's tried to kill me 6 times already, and Han's just like basically brushing him off like, can you like not screw up my best friend's shoulder, please? I need him.
Yeah, like that's my hetero life mate. And can you not screw him up? That's a bold like statement that it's his best performance, because I think we talked at length about Empire.
I don't know if
that was unbelievable.
I don't know if I would say it's his best performance. I'd say
it's probably right up there.
He gives his all though. Like regardless whether he wants to be back or not, he's in there, and he's acting his heart out.
He didn't phone it in.
He could have Bruce Willis'd it. He could have walked through, and we all would have been like, "Oh, it's Han. He's so Han right now."
Yeah.
If he was just like kind of nonchalantly making his way through the movie, but he didn't.
No, he the emotional moments he needed to hit, especially with Carrie Fisher, unbelievable. Like their little embrace when they like never see each other again, which is just like very upsetting.
For a number of reasons.
Brilliant, like absolutely brilliant, and they don't need to say much. And it's interesting to move to Carrie Fisher. For the amount she does with so few lines in this movie is unbelievable. Like half of her acting is nonverbal.
Yeah.
Like she says very few words to Han about anything really except their son. And then, she's the general doing that thing. But then when she sees Rey, they don't exchange any words in this movie.
I forgot that that's the first time they meet.
Yes,
is
that's
after everything has gone down.
Yeah, and it's so powerful. Like you just see these 2 women not need to talk, and Force sensitive or not, that's powerful. Mm-hmm. Like whether it's because they share a bond with the like through the Force, or just we've been through some stuff, huh? And like I know you, but I don't know you. It's just this beautiful moment that is acted so carefully and so beautifully. And we all know what Carrie was like as a person.
Amazing.
And then you have this that is, she's acting, like obviously she's not like that, but it's so impressive to see her become Leia.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And yes, of course I'm describing acting, but it's different. It's just so impressive.
It's how they fall into reacting to not just the new cast or even familiar cast, but the dude in the tin suit, the guy in the big furry costume, and those little glances. So when she steps off the ship with C-3PO, who just muscles his way into the frame, which nobody wants nor needs, but is a good moment of comedy, and then turns around and basically goes like, Leia, look, and she's looking at him like, are you stupid? Can you please move aside?
Talking about Harrison Ford, his facial expression at that moment is absolutely hilarious. And it's like perfectly in character, and he kind of gives this one-off like, yes, of course you're here.
Yeah. Like, oh, the professor's here.
Yeah, right?
So he's like, you might not recognize me because of my red arm. And it's like, listen, if I was blind, if I was unable to see, I would know it was you immediately, you stupid gold boy. Like, it's just ridiculous. It's so good.
We were so robbed of Leia. Of the we did have minor plans in this trilogy where the first movie is clearly Han, the second movie is clearly Luke, the third movie was supposed to be clearly Leia. And that is what we were robbed of. We were robbed of our Leia movie.
We were robbed of a lot in that last one, and I haven't even rewatched it yet.
Yeah,
she was like set up, and there are glimpses of it in what became, but that she is training Rey.
Yeah.
So she is the master, Rey is the Padawan.
Yeah.
Which would have been very cool to see realized, and like there's those flashbacks of them being young. Like we could have gotten her journey from Return of the Jedi to Force Awakens and like how she rose up, honed her Force usage, because it's just hinted at the end of Return, where she's like, oh yeah, he's my brother, like I feel that. It's the first inkling you get of like this feeling is awakening.
And it's interesting
Incorrect.
that
Empire Strikes Back, even when they weren't related yet.
Oh, you're right. You're right. She can feel him hanging on the bottom of the car. You're right.
Good job, Jim.
They aren't they aren't related yet in George Lucas's mind. But
Which
she definitely
thank God at that point.
Yeah,
but like,
right. Oh, he really goofed on that one.
But he still went for it, and it was the 80s, so everyone was like, "Yeah, cool, right on."
It happens.
They didn't know, and they
half of America's like, America's like, yeah, it happens.
Yeah, sure. But I find it interesting that they were hinting at giving Finn the same treatment, and we never really got it. Like, we kind of got it in the last movie when he's like, I gotta tell Rey something, but then, like, he never does. And it's like, we all know it's him saying that he's Force sensitive. Like, they half did it. And I'm like, that's not good enough. Over and over and over again, that's one of my biggest complaints, is how they treated Finn throughout the rest of these movies.
Because he has such a great arc, leaving this movie, of, like, understanding the weight of his responsibility, what he's kind of thrust himself into, by electing not to leave Han and Rey behind when they're leaving Maz's castle. He's, like, on the ship.
Yeah.
He elects to stay because he sees that this person that he has grown very fond of, that he feels a strong connection with, that he can help, and that they're going to a place that he has intimate knowledge of, that could then inspire him to lead others along the same path. If the next movie had been, well, now he's going to start recruiting people that he knows were brainwashed and will go along with him. We got shades of that in the last movie, but like, that's his next logical step. Is like, we have stormtroopers that are calling me traitor. The leader of the whole thing called me a traitor very emotionally.
Very upset.
When he goes to care for Rey, he's like, Rey, right before the lightsaber battle, and Kylo's pissed.
Kylo is mad.
And he's like, mad man. Traitor! Like, he can't believe it. It's like, this dude has importance.
Yeah, especially when you have, like, theoretically, we never see the full breadth of it, but like in the second movie, the Last Jedi, we kind of get that the First Order's not a small organization. They got power. And so you probably have tens, hundreds of thousands of these stormtroopers that you've been breeding, and everybody knows him.
Yep, everyone knows Finn.
Like, the leader of the First Order knows him on sight. That tells you something
immediately
about...
too, by number. He's like, oh, the guy in the village, FN2187.
Yeah, he knew immediately.
What?
I also sidebar on that. Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say, even like when they're talking about it, they're like, something happened with the droid. He got away with somebody. He's like, oh, FN2187. Like, as a like, not even mentioning anything, just knew.
Yeah, he knew. And I like that they found a way to differentiate him really early, really quick in the movie by being like, here's a red handprint on his face.
Oh, like, I got something about that.
Yeah, it was very interesting. But I do want to say that you cannot undersell the power of a black stormtrooper. Like, a black man who was a stormtrooper and gets out of that. That is something. And then you give that man a lightsaber. And we've got one black man with a lightsaber up until this point, right? Like, you got Mace Windu, and that's it. This is what you have in terms of representation. Then you get Finn. You get another, like, it's so powerful, and we were robbed of seeing him become a Jedi. Like, we were robbed of that in a way that very much upsets me.
Because at that point, like, there's no inkling that we understand that Rey is strong with the Force and that she will inevitably become, like, the conduit of anything Force related we will learn through her. But this is just, at that point, he is a guy who wields the lightsaber, understands the importance of it, picks it up, and uses what training he has to use it to the best of his ability. I
will tell you, the two things I pick up on that I'm like, you could say that is a hint that he's Force sensitive. One, he goes the right way on Jakku. He somehow finds people in a desert. That's one. Two, when Poe comes back and he's all freaking out and he's like, that's a hell of a pilot. There's no way he could see that that's Poe. But he knows it's Poe. How?
Does he know it's Poe, or because
he doesn't know, but he gets really excited about a pilot that he doesn't know.
But he also sees that he shoots down like 12 TIE fighters.
Right, but why is he
and stormtroopers that are standing there?
Yeah,
focused on that. Like, I'd just be like, that's dope, and I'd move on with my life. I'd be like, thanks, buddy. But he is like so amped as if it's his friend.
Okay,
like he's meeting that energy. You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
that may fix that
something.
Scene. Because I don't like that particular line where he's like, "That's one hell of a pilot." I'm like,
right,
you
it
have
doesn't make
so
sense.
much going on around you.
You should not be watching the skies.
Right. The explanation would be
keep it moving.
He knows that that's someone who's important to him, even if he doesn't know he knows.
So there's
that would
another.
be to me a hint.
There's another hint in there about Force sensitivity that I believe was never fully realized, and that is Han.
Ooh.
No look shoots a stormtrooper.
Ooh, yes.
And from that moment, I could not let go of the thought of, like, there's a little something there, and it could be that, he was married to Leia, like, spent all of his free time, probably, up until he left, in the presence of Jedi. Like, the Force could have manifested a little bit, not full on Jedi, but like
so he
everybody,
an
right?
He caught the Force like an STD.
Caught the Force.
I feel like, but I get what you're saying, and it's like if the Force flows through all of us, if we all have some level of ability to be sensitive to the Force, and some are just more sensitive
because
they
don't all have to be Jedi and Sith,
right? He could just be figuring out how to access that part of his connection with everything around him through exposure, like exactly like that.
They
like,
didn't accidentally capture a moment where he no-look shoots a stormtrooper.
No,
like he's shooting one guy, throws the blaster behind him, and pulls the trigger and hits him square in the chest.
Like it's one of the most impressive shots he's ever fired in his life.
They recreated that shot with Ben, in The Rise of Skywalker too.
Oh, did they? I haven't seen it.
Ben does the same. Ben does the same exact shot, which I appreciated.
That's cool.
So one thing I saw online that 100% confirmed. Do you know the stormtrooper who dies, who gives Finn?
That's a heck of a ship name, my guy.
But yes, the face waterfall. Yeah.
Gives the street. You know who killed that stormtrooper?
Who?
Poe.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I noticed that because I was thinking about that. I was like, there's one dude shooting back at these stormtroopers, and I know one of them's gonna die.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's other like village people.
The village people.
The village people are
the
there.
Villagers.
There's other town folk who are taking up guns and are ready to fire. But like, I was thinking, Poe. I almost said foe or pin. Now you got
me. Or pin.
Like Poe kills a number of these people. Yeah. I wonder what kind of impact this like puts him and Finn on. Yeah. And straight up, he kills his buddy.
Yeah.
And then Finn's like, well, this is messed up, isn't it? We shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong.
Yeah, this is a doofy thing we're doing here.
This was a mistake.
Maybe we shouldn't kill all these innocent people who are living in a village, hanging out, doing whatever.
Yeah. So another problem I have with this movie is kind of, I think the way it's written could have been done differently. And that's the reveal. Well, the reveal of Ben Kylo's father.
Yeah.
I feel like when Han walks onto that gangplank is when we should have been because the way he says it is perfect. It's like, this is the moment. It's like, what do you think you'll take off? What do you think you'll see when I take off my helmet? I'll see my son.
Yeah.
That should have been the reveal, not Snoke saying, "You're a father." Han Solo. It's like,
So
thanks. We got the implication when you said your
Yeah.
father. You did not need to
Yeah.
clarify.
And the grandfather thing.
Right.
It
So
would have
they
been
wanted
interesting
to
if we
establish
didn't know
it.
what that meant. If we didn't know whose kid he was. That would have been kind of dope.
Okay, that could have.
But-
So it's the idea of like, oh, maybe he's Luke's kid. 'Cause
Maybe,
he calls him
yeah.
grandfather. I feel like the
It could've been
understanding
interesting.
was there, like the connection was there. If this is Han's movie and we're introducing, not Han's movie, but like if he is the original trio
The pillar.
analog, the person that we put in and focus on, and we're also focusing on this villain who has an attachment to Vader, well, we all would have seen it coming. And if they waited until 2 hours into the movie to reveal it, I feel like it would have been a little frustrating. I kind of like that they did get it out of the way real quick. Like, yeah, but
Him.
we know that most of you have probably gleaned this by now, but he is Han Solo's kid. He's Han and Leia's son.
Yeah.
The reveal that his name is Ben was like,
That's
oh,
awesome.
That's great. I do agree that the dialogue is like your son or your father.
Yeah. That's
Han Solo.
bad. Snoke, everything I don't like about. But
I
what
like
was
the-
that sentence I just said? I don't like
Snoke,
a single thing
everything
about Snoke.
you don't like
I
about
don't like anything about Snoke. I'm done now.
You don't like Snoke?
I don't like Snoke.
Oh, I love
my
Andy
Ryan Johnson
Serkis.
agrees with you.
Right?
I love
like
Andy
him
Serkis.
dying.
And I like what he represented.
Sure.
And I like that. I like the idea that this movie, because I understand the desire for them to want to take a few steps back. It's been 10 years since we last did a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
We're going to kind of uncharted territory here for the first time in decades, because the prequels, you pretty much know what's going to happen. He's going to become Darth Vader.
Yeah.
But this is brand new territory. Yeah, there's a lot to call upon. There's everyone clamoring for a Thrawn adaptation. But the idea to take it a few steps back and just kind of reintroduce you to what's going on, to the lore, but to get the shades of that original trilogy out of the way by introducing Snoke right off, by doing the Death Star thing. Like, you could have gotten all that out of your system and then given us something completely new moving on from there. And kind of been done like, okay, Snoke is the mysterious Emperor type, and then take it in kind of a more interesting direction and not what they ended up doing, which was dispatching him and explaining him later on. But I think that we could have gotten all that done with. Okay, yeah, we understand it is A New Hope, but we could have just gotten, okay, we get the idea of all of them. It's all done. There's some snow stuff. There's a desert planet. There's a big Death Star. Some planets explode. We got the original trio. We don't get them all together or whatever. And now we move on to something completely fresh and new.
Yeah. I think I'm just still mad that Snoke isn't Jar Jar. I remember that theory running around for a while.
I remember the theory that it was Mace Windu.
Well, because he's a freaking hologram, so he could be anyone. And then in The Last Jedi, we see that he's real.
Just a dude.
How
great would that have been? The Wizard of Oz thing. That would have been wild.
There was a thought that it was going to be a Darth Jar Jar reveal. Like a little baby one.
Did anyone believe that, though?
I was like, if they do that, I'll cry. But they're not going to do it. And I think I'm still a little disappointed they didn't. Like,
anybody who actually believed that, I'll just leave it there.
You cut off right there, and I was like, yeah. The universe doesn't want Jim to finish that sentence. But
I know what the rest of that sentence was.
We all know what the rest of the sentence was.
I agree with your sentiment.
Listen, I love Darth Jar Jar. I don't think it's real, but I mean, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I believe that there was an intention in The Phantom Menace to make him more than just a bumbling idiot, and then George Lucas, deleted, rage quitted out of that and just never did anything with it. But
I mean, there was the shade of the idea, because he ends up, if you there's some analysis online that's it is the corruption of Jar Jar that brings about the Galactic Empire.
Yeah,
that he is one of the people that backs Palpatine immediately.
Yeah,
and it's not really in your face. But the idea that George Lucas was thinking this is going to be the corruption of something so innocent,
yeah,
that mirrors the ascension of Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader. Like, there's room for it.
There's room for it.
No one wanted to see it realized.
Shh, leave me alone.
It would have been...
Sure. Listen, we're talking about Force Awakens, so I'm gonna get off Jar Jar's back real quick.
Poor Jar Jar.
Poor Jar Jar.
He's got some good arcs in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, he does. He actually does. Very interesting.
So, back to The Force Awakens.
Nice.
We were talking about kind of the overall visual look. The sound of this movie is phenomenal. Like, I do like the music. Like I said, the opening song, they replayed it later in the movie. That like drum beat sort of sound. I really enjoyed that. Kylo Ren, I loved his voice modulation.
Me too.
Like,
it's
absolutely
so
love
good.
it. I love when he has his helmet.
If they captured that in the parks, perfectly, it would have been. I was scared. Okay, listen. I was terrified to see Kylo Ren in real. Like, I wasn't scared, and then I saw him, and then I almost peed my pants. Like, I was terrified of a guy in a Kylo Ren costume. I don't care. It was terrifying. And so I've been interrogated by Kylo twice. Both times scared the living hell out of me. If he had the right voice modulation, because he kind of just has like a Darth Vader sounding situation in the parks. If they captured what he actually sounds like in this movie, I wouldn't be able to do it again. I would have gone in once and I would have died. And then it would have been over. It would have been over. I never would go back in.
And he's such a fascinating character because when you have Darth Vader as this powerful master of the Force. Kylo Ren, you have this loose cannon who can literally tear anything apart and will do it if he gets upset enough. Like, he is
the
probably
temper
more
tantrum
terrifying.
he throws when Rey leaves.
Oh my lord.
And those two stormtroopers are coming down the hall and they're like, no.
Goodbye. And they turn back around.
Like,
Excellent.
It's
moment.
good comedic timing, but it's also like, this dude cannot contain himself.
No.
But arguably, that makes him a little like, you don't want to be on the receiving end of that because he's not going to follow the normal code of whatever a lightsaber duel is going to be. He's going to wail on you until you have no limbs left. And are begging for death. Yeah,
he's terrifying. Like, he's as much as... Listen, I think Adam Driver is a phenomenon. He takes off the helmet and I'm not scared anymore. Immediately. I feel like he just never should have taken the helmet off.
That's why he has the helmet.
Right. But it's... I'm not scared of him after that. I know I hit the table, Jim. I'm just not as scared of him anymore. And I really wish that he was just this loose cannon terrify and not like a little whiny baby. And then, but I guess that's part of the charm, isn't it?
It kind of works in like where you see that character going. Like he is this kid who took up the mantle of his grandfather, built this edgelord lightsaber with the crossing things that do have their use. Like, it demonstrates why they're there because he pokes Finn right in the shoulder with it. Like, it works, but it's also like, of course, this like kid who is fascinated by all things dark side would build something like this. Would create this pseudonym and this thing. Put the mask on, become a master of the Knights of Ren, which we never get any delivery on. And like you buy it that like that's why he wears the mask. It has no purpose whatsoever other than to make him look cool, sound cool, instill fear in others. And it works. And then when he gets his face slashed and he spends the next movie with his mask off and he's just mad. You're like, all right, I can see that this person is not to be crossed.
And that's why I think Han has that very pointed line, take the mask off, you don't need it. It's like, you are a poser, you little baby. Like, but he's not going to say that, but he definitely, like, it's such a pointed line, and I really do love it.
Did anyone explain to him that Vader turns to the light at the end?
No one told him that. No.
Seemingly, no one.
I'm
even
assuming
in all
Luke
of Luke's
did.
teachings.
I would
But
assume.
he's still like idolizing Vader.
Yeah, which Vader's
But like
dead.
Vader became Anakin at the very end
Yeah.
and spent a lot of return being like, you don't know the power of the dark side, and you kind of by the end you're like, oh, he's kind of scared of the dark side.
Yeah,
he's trying to push Luke away from it.
But Kylo says, I will succeed where you failed. We are led to believe that that is perhaps where he failed by going to the light, because through the whole movie, he is trying to go to the dark. I don't know if I have the strength to do what I need to do, which is pick a side, essentially. Do I want to go to the light? Or do I want to go to the dark? And like that whole scene at the end is probably like the best part of the movie, where they're on like the catwalk and Han Solo's walking out there. And
you know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what's about to go down.
100%.
Like going
Everyone's
into this
there.
movie that I knew it. Han Solo was going to die. No spoilers or anything, but I knew Han Solo was going to die. And the second he like walked out there, I'm like, this is it. This is where he's going to die, because handrails.
Right, no handrails.
OSHA had a field day over there.
Oh yeah, OSHA.
That was the other theme of like the original trilogy that I think would have tied that whole movie together, of like, here's revisiting the old, and it's the reversal of what if Darth Vader did not turn to the light and save his kin, his family member.
What if he killed him?
What if he offed him?
Yeah.
And fully embraced the dark, and we basically said like, no, you've been wrong the whole time.
Yeah, yeah, that's all. I have nothing to add tonight.
So I think the only character we haven't talked much about is Rey.
Say it. Thank you. That's where I was about to go. Yeah. We didn't really talk about her a lot, which is how'd that happen?
I like the next movie is clearly her movie, because it's the Luke and her. This is where she's training, the Empire Strikes Back essentially remix, where this movie, like, she is in the Luke role, but I feel like there's so much going on around her. It's almost not her movie alone.
Yeah. And there's a lot going on in this one too, and it's definitely not her movie alone.
Yeah,
I don't think
that's what I'm saying. This movie is it's not her movie because of everything else going on.
Yeah.
She almost gets lost in the movie.
And they said
she almost does.
She disappears for quite a like. There's shots back to her on Starkiller Base being captured, but like, she's not involved in the plan to destroy Starkiller Base.
Yeah, no.
She's just kind of swept up in what's going on. She's kind of a passenger of what's going on. She's our analog of like this conflict and understanding both sides of it, but she's not a participant until that last duel.
Right.
But she's still there to kind of carry forward what's been going on. The Force is going to awaken in her. She goes on the journey. We understand how important she's going to be.
Yeah.
And she's a hell of a pilot.
She's a hell of a
to use that line again.
Yeah, why not?
I get the sense, because she says like, oh, I've flown, starfighters before. She calls the Millennium Falcon a piece of junk, but she knows her way around it, which means that thing's been parked there, and she's been walking around it in her off time and getting familiar with the gunner seat. And
she definitely is familiar with it, because she points Finn to where the gunner seat is. She knows where the hidden compartment is. Like, she knows about the modifications and everything. So she 100% had to have been on that ship.
She knows that ship, and she knows that it's a piece of junk.
Garbage. Yep.
She acknowledged that. She said it hasn't flown in a long time. It'd be like if you were running away from somebody in a junkyard, and there's a Ferrari over here and a Ford Pinto. And you're like, well, we're not going to take the Ford Pinto. Yeah, it hasn't been run in 15 years. Right. And then the Ferrari gets blown up, and you're like, I guess we're hot wiring this thing and getting out of here.
The garbage will do.
And like, in a way, it does the job, and that is the reason that they end up swept up in the rest of it, and they bring Han back in, and they end up responsible for Han's death. But the quote that I saw in how they were going to bring in Luke and the decision to not include him at all. Apparently the original script that Michael Arndt wrote had him show up halfway through. Like at the middle point of the movie, they were going to find him, and then the rest of the movie would carry on. But then they were thinking, well, if we bring him back halfway through, then he's going to overshadow everything else going on. No one's going to care about any of these other new characters as long as Luke's around. Yeah. So we got to hold him off to the end. Yeah. And even so, and I hadn't thought about this while watching it, because Rey is there enough. Daisy Ridley is doing an incredible job of acting the character, and Rey's theme musically is excellent.
Yeah.
The use of her as like a scavenger, is like pulling things out and like knowing her way through these parts and struggling to survive on this desert planet. Like you buy into all that wholesale 100%. But she is kind of a passenger.
Mm-hmm.
She's there. She's capable. You know why she's capable. I hate the argument that she's a Mary Sue and she shouldn't know any of this stuff because she's from a desert world. No, she had to learn to be capable.
She's illustrated as capable from like the first couple scenes we see her.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, she's living in an AT-AT.
She's killing it.
So she's aware of like Imperial stuff and controls. She's probably been messing with stuff in the junkyard to fix up those ships. She knows which fuses to... Well, she doesn't know which fuses to pull. She ends up pulling the wrong fuse and releasing the J.J. Abrams monsters.
Right.
But that's a different ship anyway.
Different ship, yes. But like she knows her way around these different ships and these electronics because that is all that she has open to her. Mm-hmm. The only thing she can do with the first 20 years of her life is survive, fight for survival, strip these ships for parts so she can eat, and occasionally believe that she's a rebel pilot by putting on that little helmet.
It's so cute.
But like
no,
you
hit it. You hit it on the head. Like she is. It makes me so mad when people talk about her because I love her so much, and you guys just explained why. So I'm not going to repeat it.
Well, she has to be electronically capable. Her livelihood literally relies on her getting good enough parts that she will get paid for. And so she can't pull junk out because she won't get anything for it. It's like if she pulled out like a bunch of loose wires, Unkar Plit would laugh at her and she would die in the desert. Like she needs to basically be able to teach herself or learn from someone out there what she needs to do. And so she has to be a capable mechanic, essentially.
Yep. And that she is.
Indeed.
And the rest you can just explain with the Force.
Yeah.
Because, everyone we've ever seen has used the Force without training. Not well. And she doesn't really use it that well either.
No, she has to get reminded that it exists. When he's like, you need a teacher. Right. I can show you the ways of the Force. And she's like,
oh, yeah.
The Force.
The Force.
Now you're done.
Now you're screwed.
Wait, hold on. Like... John Williams just teed me off that I could beat you.
I can hear that. Great. It's like, everyone can use the Force a little bit if you're Force sensitive without training, and that's what she's doing the whole time.
Yeah,
and
Finn,
she
that's how the Force works.
Right, it's like, Finn. It's funny when she line. Controls the stormtrooper. Mm-hmm. Right, but she has to look him in the eye.
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig, 100%, unmistakably
Daniel Craig. And then she does it. And then she doesn't need to be looking at. She figured it out.
She's also trying so hard.
She's trying so hard.
On her face.
Changes.
Before he comes around, she's like, come on, believe me. You will release my restraint. And he comes around. Everything relaxes as if she knows exactly what needs to be done.
Her eyebrow lifts a little bit.
Yeah,
You're like,
and then
there
she
she
just
is.
Completely calm. You're going to remove the restraints and let me go.
Yeah.
And then Daniel Craig just kind of loses it
yes, I am.
I am going to do that.
And then she just casually and you're going to drop your weapon. And I am dropping my weapon. Uh-huh. It's so good. And she's figuring it out as she's going. She fails several times.
Yeah. Yeah, I buy that journey. And the Force needed to latch onto somebody.
Yes.
And that's the other forgotten theme of this trilogy that I wish they had just followed through with. That she didn't need to be tied to anybody. That the Force wanted to be rebalanced, needed to be, and it ended up happening with her. And she has enough ties to what's been going on and was in a place in her life that was still tied to that conflict with the Empire that I get why it would end up being her. And you just for movie logic of if it wasn't her, then she wouldn't be in the movie. I can buy that to an extent if they had just followed through, because the other thing, the meta theme that they could have gone with of a new trilogy is that was the old Star Wars. That was the people that you knew. You might not have grown up on it, but you got attached to it. You're going to grow up with these movies, or you grew up with the prequels or whatever. But for the younger generation, this can still be part of your story.
Yeah.
And to demonstrate that by saying, well, the Force can just rise up in whoever it needs to rise up in. But instead, she's a Palpatine.
Yeah, I liked her as a nobody.
She was great as a nobody.
I do love Rey.
It is what it is. What it is. It's like it's one of those like this is the story we have.
Yeah.
But
as
she
far
is
as J.J. Abrams' mysteries, it's not the worst.
Yeah, like the she is essentially a nobody. She doesn't know her parents. She like her blood is Palpatine, but she is still a nobody, because she was raised by nobody, and and so it kind of works there. Like your genetics are not who make you what you are, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Found family is just as valid as blood.
That's adoption. You're basically saying, like, if you say that she can't be whatever she wants to be, you're saying adoption doesn't count. Like,
yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, I don't understand well, I mean, I get it, but J.J. Abrams kind of made a point about one of his things was to not give surnames to Rey, to Finn at the jump. Disney then continued their fascination with last names by saying, this is how Han Solo became named Han Solo.
Yeah, right.
See? And then she ends up taking on the Skywalker moniker later on. It just feels not necessary. In a world where people are named Wedge Antilles, Lando Calrissian, like, the names don't need to mean anything. She can just be Rey. It's okay.
She can, but she's a Skywalker, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, anyone who argues with me, I get. I'm like, yeah, I understand, but she is, though, because she chose that. And so she is, and that's valid. But, yeah, I mean, would it have been cool if she just didn't have a last name? Dope.
No one would have thought about it.
No one would have thought about it.
Well, like,
because no one would ask, what's your name? Rey. Rey what?
Well,
would you
Rey, just Rey, honey.
I'm like Cher.
Yeah. Well, like you live in a galaxy of unlimited number of planets and cultures. Some of them, like Rey, just may be her name because, like, you have Kira.
And who is this weird?
What's Kira's last name?
We'll find out in
or is
the
it
Mandalorian
Ra?
season 4.
Or is her first name?
Is it Kira?
And
maybe.
Kira, like we have characters with just one name. We live on a planet,
Chewbacca,
like Chewbacca, and you have like cultures like Chinese culture where their names are flipped compared to more Western style, where your family name comes first in Chinese culture. So you have a wide array just in our own planet. Like what? Yeah. But that's a topic for a different time.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Here are 2 nitpicks that I really wanted to bring up.
Go on.
And they are so one of them is very valid. The other one is very
Bond.
Yes. So I'll go with that one first. Han and Chewie have been palling around the galaxy for how long?
Ages.
40
forever.
years.
Yeah.
50 years. Never once until that
Never
day
fired
did
the
he use
gun.
Chewbacca's bowcaster.
Yeah.
That was the first time in 50 years of friendship that he
Yeah.
was like, hey, can I use that real quick? Mine's a little busted up right now.
Yeah, right? There's no way.
That's a legit nit.
That actively
It's funny,
bothered me.
though.
That actively bothered me.
Yeah, it creates a fun moment, but you're right.
Yes.
I thought
and
that.
that's the thing. It is a fun moment because, again, as you were talking about, like the demonstration of how powerful that thing is. Yeah. And it helps kind of like push through like, yeah, this thing is dope. And we never really got to see him use it too much.
Yeah.
Until now.
I don't think I don't know if it was used in Solo, but in the original trilogy, it's never fired.
So I wasn't sure if he uses it on Cloud City at all when they're escaping. Is it a different weapon he's fighting? Maybe he's just firing a blaster?
He might be. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm almost positive it's never fired.
But like he's been carrying that thing around
forever.
You've never swapped weapons or never had to like he couldn't get to it real quick and you could. Like, that bothers me. The other thing, and this is more about like execution of later films and dropping the idea entirely, but where the hell did Luke's lightsaber come from?
Oh yeah, they just completely like Maz is like, oh, a good question for another time.
In your face about it.
It's hand
and
waved
then we
away.
Never find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's a J.J. Abrams thing of his mystery box. He does the same thing. this is another one that bothers me. Mission Impossible 3, at the very end, they're chasing this MacGuffin the whole thing. It's this weapon that's going to kill everybody. It's called the Rabbit's Foot. No one knows what it does. It doesn't matter. It's a MacGuffin. That's the point of the MacGuffin.
Yes.
The MacGuffin is never explained. It just drives the plot along. We understand that the heroes need it, and that's it. That's fine.
So,
but J.J. Abrams insists on the last line of the movie being, by the way, the Rabbit's Foot, what is it? And this other guy goes, I'll tell you some other time. It's like, you don't need to point out that this thing is a mystery. Yeah. But if you're going to introduce Luke's lightsaber, don't then raise the question and say, oh, we'll get to that, and then never get to it. I feel like there was an original storyboard where someone found it.
Oh, maybe, because like in canon of the stories written, we don't actually have an answer for where it got. There is a short story where I'm almost convinced a Bazine, the woman who calls in the First Order when they go to Maz's, she finds something and brings it to Maz, I believe. We're never told what it is. It is the assumption that it is Luke's lightsaber, but we don't know. Like in canon, it has not, that story has not been expressed in 6 years of where that lightsaber came from.
Which is crazy because the comics they're doing now to fill in the gap of Empire to Return are spending so much time explaining Exegol and the Emperor's plan after death. And yet no one... And they even did a little short story called How C-3PO Got His Red Arm.
Yep.
But no one deigns to, like, here's how the lightsaber ended up in her possession. Yeah. Here's why she didn't give it to Han immediately. Maybe this is the first time that they've seen each other since she got it. She knows it's Luke's. She has an understanding, I guess, of force-sensitive objects or of the history of the galaxy. She's been around forever. I get that. That's fine. But just the idea that they throw it in your face, hey, here's Luke's lightsaber, and they don't explain it ever again, bothers me. Even if it was if it was on the page, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
But it actively bothers me that there was no answer.
Yeah, that's really irritating.
So one of the things I do really like are the memes where she's handing Luke the lightsaber and he goes, the hand. There was a hand with that.
Yeah.
Did you happen to grab the hand?
Yeah.
So we should wrap up, but I got one thing I want to mention. We had talked on a previous episode, Hosnian Prime, how it should have been Coruscant.
Yes.
J.J. Abrams or Lucasfilm, one of them didn't want to blow up Coruscant.
I think Lucasfilm didn't want to blow up Coruscant. J.J. did.
Yeah. So and we all agreed it should have been Coruscant because
it just should have been.
Where the hell is Hosnian Prime? What is that planet? But actually, when they showed the people on Hosnian Prime, I recognized one of the actresses immediately, and I'm like it's probably because I've seen her on other shows since then. But Maisie Sellers, if you watch Legends of Tomorrow, she's one of the main characters, and I looked and I'm like, is that Maisie Sellers?
Right up front
immediately this time. Like I never realized it immediately. I looked her up. I'm like, is this actress in Force Awakens? And sure enough, it is. And I'm like, oh, it's like.
So do they ever say Hosnian Prime in the movie? They just say they did. They blew up the Republic.
I don't know that they said Hosnian Prime.
I think they did say Hosnian Prime.
I'm not sure.
I just watched it 5 minutes ago.
Because I'm watching it acknowledging that I know it's not Coruscant. Even though, like, as I'm scanning the background, I'm like, where's the Jedi Temple?
I think I assumed it was Coruscant.
We all kind of did, and then it was, I know it was established later on, like, firmly, like, no, that wasn't Coruscant, guys. And then there was early plans and artwork shown for Episode 9 that would have taken place partially on Coruscant. It would have been like their return. That would have been very cool.
That would have been dope.
But there's no reason it shouldn't be Coruscant. That's the seat of the government in the galaxy, and you're blowing up the seat of the government. So why is it not?
Why is it not? Well, they made Hosnian Prime the seat of government. They were like,
goodbye,
Coruscant.
Too corrupted.
Who knows?
Coruscant's a crap hole.
This is true.
So, I don't know. I could have swore they called it out, but I don't remember without having to go. It's one of those things like, did they use that word in the movie? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like they never called them Ewoks.
Right, like they never called them Ewoks.
I don't know. Nicole, do you have anything else?
I forgot how much I like this movie.
Same.
Yeah, I really like it. It doesn't bother me that it's similar to A New Hope. I think that's one of the reasons I like it, honestly. The characters in this movie are so well established and so fascinating. I just remember the absolute joy I had walking out of that theater the first time. And just us freaking out that we had new Star Wars, and it felt so good. And man, I wish we could have had that 2 more times, but that's okay, I guess. Yeah, I love this movie, and believe it or not, the sequels are canon, so this one's gonna stick around for a long time.
Last Jedi is my favorite movie. My favorite Star Wars movie.
I cannot wait to rewatch The Last Jedi. I was just saying that. Like, I can't wait.
But I owe that one a rewatch.
Yeah, you do.
Even during lockdown, I didn't rewatch it.
Yeah. Well,
we can change that.
You're right. Like, I had so much fun watching this movie. Like, it's one of those, like, you go in, you're like, this is a good movie. Like, it's a lot of fun. I like where they were going with this movie. And
100%.
I like the characters. I like everything they did. Like, Galaxy's Edge is based on this movie, really. And so, like, you go to Galaxy's Edge, you like everything you liked from this movie is in Galaxy's Edge, and so it ties together so well. And it's a fun movie.
It is.
Yeah, there was no reason not to keep it familiar for the reintroduction.
Yeah.
And for whatever else goes on from here, whether you hate Last Jedi, love Last Jedi, whether you're forgiving of Rise of Skywalker, like, I can still, even reconciling how the rest of the trilogy goes, I can still watch this one.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's very easy just to put on. Mm-hmm. It's very pretty. Performances are great. Cast is great. Music is great.
Yeah.
What more do you need?
Nothing. Nothing for a Star Wars movie. Not a lot.
All right.
I was happy.
I think we'll end it right there. That sounds like a good place to end. Alex, are you...
Me!
If you were to have people contact you online, how would you allow them to do that?
Right.
If you're even online or want anybody to contact you.
My email address is...
I wouldn't go that far. Hold on. No.
You can send me letters too. I'm not much up on the socials. My band has a page for Map of Rome, MAPOFROME. Not very active on like the social, but we have stuff on Spotify, Bandcamp. I don't really post. I won't even bother giving you my Twitter that hasn't been touched in 4 years.
I forgot you had a Twitter.
My Instagram account that I posted my proposal picture to, and that was it for about 2 years. Yeah, we won't get into that, but I will plug my band and my buddy Daryl Arden, who I am recently working with on some of his stuff. It's good music. Check it out.
Yeah.
Excellent. Sounds good. And with that, we will call it a day. If you would like to get in contact with us, you can email us at's in the middle of the email. Talkin Tauntauns at AIPTcomics.com. Stop shaking your head at me, Nicole. You could also find us.
You can drop your email address, but I can't give mine.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. You can also find us on Twitter at Talkin Tauntauns. See, I know how to use an @ in the right places sometimes.
Good
sometimes. Job. And with that, we will see you next week.